Welcome to SVG-TV News for Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. A high-level national consultation on addressing the readiness of the Caribbean community to engage in negotiations for tariff liberalization commitments was held here today. Delivering the keynote address at the opening ceremony, Director of Foreign Trade in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Okolo John Patrick, described the consultation as timely for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, given the uncertainty surrounding the impacts of increased tariffs on Vincentian goods and the broader ripple effects on global price hikes. She noted that the rising cost of imported goods and machinery used in production could significantly affect local industries, and when input prices increase, the cost of production rises, which ultimately impacts consumers. She said it is therefore imperative that they meet to discuss and formulate strategies to navigate these trying times. The consultation provides a critical opportunity for stakeholders from both the public and private sectors to contribute to shaping the region's trade policy. It supports Caricom's ongoing efforts to refine its approach to external trade negotiations, particularly concerning tariff liberalization. Key objectives of the consultation include analyzing the factors influencing St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the region's offensive, defensive, and neutral positions in trade negotiations, identifying priority products and subsectors within each interest category, reviewing Caricom's trade performance from 2012 to 2021, developing evidence-based strategies to guide Caricom's offers and requests in market access negotiations. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Sandy Peters-Phillips, underscored the importance of the readiness assessment in the face of shifting global trade dynamics.
The aftermath of trade wars and the reintroduction of tariffs, such as those recently instituted under the America's First trade policy, have created a less predictable and more competitive international environment. As small developing economies, it is essential that we position ourselves to be not only resilient but proactive in pursuing new trade opportunities. The data presents a clear picture. Between 2019 and 2023, the United States accounted for approximately 43% of St. Vincent and the Grenadines' total imports, making it our largest import partner. However, only 13% of our exports went to the U.S. during the same period, creating a significant trade imbalance. Trinidad and Tobago followed as our second largest import source, with notable trade also coming from the United Kingdom, China, Barbados, and even Japan. On the export side, in 2023 alone, roughly 43% of our total exports were observed by other OECS states, especially Antigua, St. Lucia, and Dominica, who continue to import flour, beverages, and animal feed in substantial quantities. Meanwhile, provisions and tubers remains a key export commodity to markets such as Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and the British Virgin Islands.
She noted that despite ongoing trade activity, the region's productive sectors are not operating at optimal capacity. Peters-Phillips said industries across the region face significant constraints, including limited production capacity, high energy costs, small and fragmented markets, and inadequate infrastructure.
Transportation, logistics, and storage are also in need of urgent attention, particularly when it comes to vessels and facilities that can support reliable export delivery. Indeed, the competitiveness of our goods is ultimately tied to factors such as labor productivity, access to technology, and the strength of our trade support institutions. Many Caricom firms are micro or small enterprise with limited capital and human resources, further compounded by high input cost. From a demand side perspective, the challenges are no less pressing. Market access is constrained by the high cost of visibility, product promotion, securing shelf space, and meeting shelf-ready packaging standards are expensive undertaking that often hinders our exporters from making inroads to new markets. The assessment will therefore be instrumental in identifying both the gaps and the opportunities that lies before us.
Peters Phillips emphasized that the goal is to move beyond a defensive trade posture and instead pursue new partnerships in market access and investment flows.
To that end, we recently participated in an investment forum in the United Kingdom with our diaspora, who have expressed great interest in contributing to our national development. The sectors under consideration range from real estate and construction to airport management, tourism, logistics, healthcare, and climate resilience. We believe that it is this is an opportune moment to tap into the resources and strengthen our economic foundation. Furthermore, it is important to reference the 2018 report on the future direction of Caricom's external trade policy, where member states affirm the region's trade policy must be firmly rooted in its developmental goals. As articulated in the Community Strategic Plan, this means supporting economic and social resilience and promoting sustainable development. The policy must also empower regional enterprises of all sizes to integrate into a global and regional value chain by addressing persistent supply side and competitiveness constraints. Critically, the region's external trade agenda must evolve, shifting from a narrow focus on trade in goods to encompass services, investment, and regulatory frameworks. This includes moving beyond traditional tariff negotiations to tackle non-tariff and regulatory barriers affecting both goods and services. To be effective, this approach must be closely aligned with the foreign policy initiative that can support and strengthen Caricom's external trade strategies.
Peters Phillips added that a preliminary analysis of the recent shifts in U.S. trade policy has already begun to shape Caricom's strategic response. Top priorities include strengthening intra-regional trade and production integration, accelerating the implementation of the Caricom Single Market and Economy, the CSME, fast-tracking the Caricom Regional Industrial policy, and advancing initiatives like the 25 by 25 food security agenda. She noted that the readiness assessment is not just timely but vital as it enables member states to scale up their export capacity, enhance competitiveness, and ensure that we are well prepared to navigate the next chapter of international trade negotiations with confidence and unity. Meanwhile, Vincent Atkins, Trade Policy Technical Advisor on the Caricom Single Market and Trade for Less Developed Countries, LDCs, who is one of the facilitators of the consultation, stated that the America First trade policy has not only created global uncertainty, but has also thrown the entire global economic and trade environment into disarray. Atkins noted that this shift in U.S. policy has shown scant regard for the established international trade rules under which countries have operated for decades, rules that have provided a level of predictability and security, especially for small developing nations.
Because a rule-based regime means that every partner, large or small, is supposed to operate within predictable guidelines, set guidelines, so that you are always aware of what the framework, what that environment is. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that that environment is always fair and just, but you know the rules of the game, and therefore you know how to maneuver without that framework. You know what countries can do and what they cannot do, and you know also what to do if a country does not abide with the rules. When there is disregard for such a regime by a large, powerful country such as the US, it throws the entire global environment, the entire framework, as I said before, into disarray. And so we now have to think, when we consider the objective that the court had set, that is, to determine our readiness to engage in further trade liberalization, and juxtapose that against the activities of a large, powerful country, which is a significant market to us, going into the opposite direction, it gives us reason to pause. But it also makes it even more important for us to consult with the persons and the entities that are most likely, or that would most likely be affected by the activities under the America First trade policy.
Atkins said at the conclusion of the ongoing consultation involving all Caricom member states, a comprehensive report will be prepared. This report will outline the positions of various member countries, detail the concerns and interests of firms and entities affected by trade developments, and offer recommendations on the region's readiness to engage in further trade liberalization. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Tuesday, April 22, 2025, signed an agreement to procure 300 prefabricated houses from Steel Frame Engineering Solutions Limited, a company based in Trinidad and Tobago. The agreement forms part of ongoing efforts to rebuild homes for those affected by Hurricane Beryl. Speaking at the signing ceremony, Minister responsible for housing, Orlando Brewster, stated that the homes, which can be assembled in just a few days, include 100 two-bedroom units and 200 three-bedroom units at an estimated total cost of US $7 million.
Steel Frame Engineered Solution will provide the prefab homes. We are only responsible here locally for the construction of the bases, the septic, the sewer system, and when they arrive on island, it is going to be approximately 7 days to erect one of these prefab homes. You may ask who is Steel Frame Engineered Solution. We've worked with them before when we did prefab homes in Orange Hill. So we know the quality of their products. They have been tested and proven. And they also went through Hurricane Beryl, and we did not lose not even a nail on one of those homes. So we are really happy that this morning that we have finally settled all of the documentation for this aspect of the rebuilding phase. And according to Jessie Scott, she's ready to start delivering homes tomorrow, but I know it would take some time. But we are expecting at least in 2 weeks' time, we should have a turnaround. And we're expecting to have, on a monthly basis, 40 to 50 homes coming into country. And once they're in, we have already advanced the construction of the bases. So when they're in, the turnaround should be quick. And this is part and parcel of our 1,000 homes that we are mandated by our Prime Minister to accomplish before the end of 2025. And we are on our way there.
Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, who also addressed the signing ceremony, expressed his satisfaction with the progress made, noting that he is very pleased that they have reached this important stage in the project with the signing of the contract for the delivery of 300 prefab homes.
Putting up these houses would take the short period of time that Orlando Brewster has said. But remember this. You have to do the base. So the base takes some time. You have to do the septic arrangements. And if, as in Orange Hill, we have to put in the infrastructure of the roads, depending on where they're going to be put, There's a lot other investments which we have to put inside. Now, Rwanda is quite right. We know the quality of their work. They were very generous with us at Orange Hill when they did the first 20-something houses, 27 of them. But that settlement cost a lot of money and it took some time because of the infrastructure which we had to put in. Now, some of these houses would be built by individual spaces where people have the lands already, and that would be very helpful, so that you already have, invariably in those cases, road infrastructure. So you'll cut down on that particular cost. But no doubt you will have clusters of houses in particular areas. But you have to bear this in mind. If you do them in clusters, you will be able to do the bases quicker. Because one locale. But if you have to do them all about, I'm talking now pure logistics.
The Prime Minister acknowledged the significant work involved in the overall housing recovery initiative. He also reiterated one of the major challenges, a shortage of reliable contractors, skilled workers, and construction materials.
I want persons who have some skill in construction to get involved right now, to go to the Ministry of Housing, to go to HLDC. We do not have enough hands. Some people in their homes, or they go about their own business, they say, why they can't do this thing faster? Even though we have done fairly well. But you can't do things faster without people, contractors and skilled workers. Then, and it relates to this in part, but the houses, the other kinds of houses, what we do the traditional way in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where you need a lot of different types of building materials. And sometimes, because you have to import the building materials, sometimes the building materials run short. Because you make a shipment and then you're waiting the other shipment. You know, you'll have the galvanized factory, they can produce a certain amount, a certain volume. But the amount of work there is, if you just rely on one source, you're not going to be able to have all the materials you require. I'm addressing practical things. I've been in this business so long, I know the thing like the back of my hand. I don't have to be a civil engineer or a contractor. I know the ingredients, you know.
According to Dr. Gonzalez, more than 3,500 homes have already been repaired or are currently undergoing repair work, with almost all roofing work completed across the country. However, he noted that an estimated 1,000 homes on Union Island in the Southern Grenadines still remain to be completed. Following a sit-out stage on Tuesday by employees of the Ministry of Education and National Reconciliation located at the main administrative buildings in capital Kingstown, a decision has been made to temporarily relocate the ministry's operations. On Tuesday, employees comply with a directive from their union, the Public Service Union, to refrain from occupying their usual workplace due to health-related concerns. These concerns are reportedly linked to mole infestation and other hazardous conditions within the building. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, speaking on radio today, acknowledged the seriousness of the situation. He stated that meetings were held to urgently identify temporary office accommodations for the affected workers.
They're dissatisfied with what is the condition with the buildings in which they are, and that basically is mold. And I just want to say is that we are committed, the government is, to make sure that workers, not generally, but specifically where we have direct responsibility for our employees, the government's employees, that you have places of work which are healthy. There's no argument about that. A mold is dangerous to person's health, represents a danger. And for some people who already have some predispositions to respiratory challenges, it would be worse.
Dr. Gonzalez confirmed that ministry staff will be housed at 2 separate locations to ensure the continuity of operations while addressing the environmental issues at the original site.
There are several other options we looked at, but they were not suitable. We even engaged the proprietor of a Montrose building, which is now used by the American University. They entered negotiations, and then that too fell through. So and based on the Cabinet's approval in principle, multiple visits were made to the old Teachers College compound, with the one I'm talking about with the schools, with design support from the Ministry of Transport, and preliminary designs were provided by the 17th of April 2025. We discussed it in mid-April, the Cabinet that is, and we formally approved for location to go there. I mean, part of the staff, and also to the building upstairs by Cable and Wireless.
In celebration of Earth Day 2025, Action Beckway was presented with the prestigious TradeWinds Environmental Hero Award in recognition of its outstanding contributions to sustainability and marine conservation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The award was presented during the awards and prize-giving ceremony of the SVG Sailing Week by Carlos James, Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture, in collaboration with Ricardo Flores, Vice President of Sustainability and Stakeholder Relations at TradeWinds. Accepting the award on behalf of Action Beckway was Executive Board Chair Lucille Cosia.
Cycling for us, well, that's our flagship. That was the original project that Action Beckway started with. We've done so many things since then, but recycling remains the most visible and the most transformative. I want you to turn around and have a look at that metal structure on the side of the Sparrow Bar. He was hidden a little bit, so we brought him where you can see him. That's our Phil D. Whale. We've created that project and so far have made 18 of these whales, 16 of which are in the schools in Beckway, the primary, the preschools, and the secondary schools. And the purpose of that is to teach, encourage, and have the children from preschool age learning to love and care for their environment. They are the future, and we have to impress upon them how important it is to take care of the environment. Put your plastics in those receptacles that we've created. We also have, in fact, the very first thing we did when we started, we put 240 bins across Beckway. You'll see them as you move along. They're pairs of green recycling, blue litter. We have fortunately been able to buy our own trucks so that we can manage and control these litter bins, these recycling bins, and empty them every day, possibly.
In his remarks, Minister James commended Action Beckway as an inspiring model of grassroots leadership and environmental responsibility, adding that protecting our natural heritage is an act of preservation and nation building. Here that a 2-day witness care and risk assessment workshop is currently being hosted by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the ODPP, also known as the National Prosecution Service of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The workshop forms part of the biannual Criminal Justice Stakeholders Reform Initiative, known as All Right, short for applying lawful responses to intercepting gangsters, hustlers, and transgressors. Delivering welcoming remarks at the opening ceremony held this morning at the NIS conference conference room, Crown Council 2 at the ODPP. Rennie Simmons told representatives from various stakeholder agencies that their presence reflects a shared and unwavering commitment to safeguarding the rights, welfare, and dignity of one of the justice system's most critical partners, participants, witnesses.
This today workshop is both timely and essential, and I'm sure you would agree with me. It presents not only a valuable opportunity for professional development, but also serves as a reaffirmation of our collective obligation to ensure that witnesses are not merely heard, but are comprehensively protected and adequately supported throughout every phase of their involvement in the justice process. It is requisite that we do more. Effective witness care and risk assessment requires more than technical proficiency. It calls for sound judgment, ethical integrity, interagency collaboration, and above all, a person-centered approach rooted in empathy and respect. The way we engage with and respond to the needs of witnesses can profoundly influence their personal experience, affect case outcomes, and impact the credibility and humanity of the justice system on a whole.
In her keynote address, Director of Public Prosecution Shigella McDonald reminded participants that as trustees of the criminal justice system, they must prioritize the interests of its primary beneficiaries, witnesses, and survivors of crime above their own.
So consider witnesses that you encounter and will encounter as your principals and your beneficiaries. You must take special care serving those, especially those who struggle to be convinced that justice can be done or even seen to be done, and that there is room for restoration and rehabilitation. It is no coincidence that in this room you would find prosecutors, witness care officers, investigators, lawyers from the public bar, administrators, experts, the media. All leaders in your own right. All Right 2025 draws together yet again stakeholders with an agenda to improve upon what we have inherited. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as we all know, it is not exempt from scaling violent crimes, and with every bloodshed and pandemonium, we hear, and sometimes, if we admit it, we join in the lament about how callous the criminals are in our societies. But we should dare not say that all that is happening around us is all wrong. The past and the present does not hold the future captive. If we assign our fears as we are confronted with crimes, if we assign these fears the role of reactive agents in our lives, then our societies will not be crippled and crumbled because of increasing crimes.
McDowell further challenged attendees to transform their fears into strength and determination, urging them to resist the growing concern that society is devolving into a haven for criminality. She emphasized that this determination is the driving force behind the All Right initiative.
This year's All Right is packaged as a two-day workshop with two central issues in focus, which is witness care and risk assessment. This year, I will let you know that it's a key strategic priority of the Office of the DPP to focus on building our witness care service. So over the past few years, I'm proud that we have been able to accomplish what we have today, which is a 6 member-strong witness care units staffed by dedicated police officers, led by a sergeant of police, Mrs. Shafiqa Diamond Dick, and very well supported by experience and otherwise forward-thinking, and I love this part, young people. The hope is that as we make contact with witnesses, that they have the benefit of our interventions. But even as the witness care units, some of which I am sure persons are perhaps unfamiliar with the unit, but there are many persons that have benefited from their work through the magistrate courts and high courts of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But there is immense work to do, and that's what brings us here. I recognize that there are weaknesses in the witness support and risk assessment mechanism nationally. So if witnesses are supposed to lean on service providers, it cannot be police alone, or prosecutors, or witness care officers. We are looking at a holistic team. We are looking at greater information sharing, creation of new services, governmental, yes, but more non-governmental. And we're looking at the referral mechanisms because we cannot do it all ourselves.
In other local news now, we hear that the head of the Venezuelan diplomatic mission here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Francisco Perez Santana, was present at the Argyle International Airport to see off a group of 9 young Vincentian entrepreneurs who will participate in the first International Congress of Entrepreneurs Connect, Create and Undertake to be held in Venezuela from April 23rd to the 25th, 2025. A total of 313 international guests will attend the Congress, including 39 participants from the Caribbean region. Among them are entrepreneurs from Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Dominica, St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is proudly represented by the following 9 entrepreneurs: Onika Charles, tour operator; Lena Clark, a member of the Prime Ministerial Advisory Council on Youth and Marketing consultant; Enrique Bala, founder of Caribbean's Superfood Coffee; Jonathan Durant, representative of the SVG Farmers Unit; Kimia Glasgow, fashion designer; Galen Andrews, Business Development Center; Jasmine Dean, founder of Jazzy's All Natural; Rishon Dillon Carlson Richardson, the SVG Chamber of Commerce; and Nadine Akar Juilliard, Invest SVG. The Congress, organized by the Bolivarian government of Venezuela, aims to foster innovation and creativity, strengthen international trade links, and support economic development. Participants will engage in panel discussions, business exhibition, expert presentations across various economic sectors, bilateral meetings, and site visit to successful businesses operating in Venezuela.